Gotta get my space organized. So. Board member training? All right, we ready to go? Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is Monday, January 20th at 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room at the Jamestown Middle School. Please note that there is new board member orientation at 4:30 in the district conference room this evening. I'd like to welcome all those in the audience. Thank you for joining us. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm getting waves. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to our school board norms. Jason, would you read the board norms?
The board developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, commit to assessing board effectiveness, and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Jason. Moving on our agenda, we have no public communication. Any conflicts of interest to declare? Any conflicts of interest? Aaron.
In the event of executive session, I declare a conflict with the teachers' negotiation session.
Any other conflicts of interest?
I will have to declare the same thing.
Okay. All right. Any other conflicts for this agenda? Okay. If not, moving forward to our consent agenda. Is there a motion, or is there anything anyone would like to be pulled off the consent agenda at first for further discussion? Or any clarifications? Okay. If not, is there a motion? Motion by Melissa, second by Aaron. We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving into our regular meeting, under recognition, we have a thank you from the family of Lori Hare for remembrance for her dad, and also from Emma and Cody Mickelson for in remembrance of Cody's mom. We also have some greeting cards from the NDSBA and Pierce Sturrock. Moving on to reports, I don't see student council here, but if they come later, if it's okay with the board, we'll just let them do the report at that time. Okay. Number 2, board retreat report. Dan? Would you please share that?
Sure thing. So the minutes of the board retreat are shown in the consent agenda. I'll just be expanding on a few items that more for the public's benefit to kind of understand what goes on in one of those retreats. First of all, I want to reiterate that we did not make any decisions. The goal of these retreats is to make sure that we've got enough information to make the correct decisions and also assess, does the public have the information? Are we hearing things correctly, and do we have enough information to do our work? So we did start with the tour of the child care wing of the Career and Technical Center, which was that was partially funded by the North Dakota grants, and it really looks nice. And the discussion about what capabilities this adds and the benefits for our not only our community but also our staff for child care was good. Also, the good discussion on what, how did we stay within budget? There were some decisions made in making sure that we're being good stewards of the funds that we've been entrusted with. So that was a good tour. We had some discussions regarding conflict of interest, mostly procedural in nature. So how to handle those as we get into negotiation season. The big discussions were mostly about sifting through the information that was, looking through the future enrollment projections and the state of our aging buildings, discuss the impressions from the community meetings that the most recent task force was engaged in collecting, and making sure that we get feedback from a representative cross-section of our community. and really trying to understand, do people understand, first of all, what the situation is? And then second of all, do we have enough information to be able to make that decision? So we went over the results of the independent enrollment study conducted by RSP. The takeaways from that discussion were, even though they had an independent model, different from what Dr. Leck had done, it really came more or less to the same information, where you can expect declining enrollment, even with Jamestown that's stable or even slightly growing. Just the demographics are point to a reduced enrollment. That brings up issues of building capacity and building utilization. So looking at 4 of our buildings with that data, we're running anywhere between 53 and 67% of our capacity. So that means we're in a point of having to make some decisions and looking at this data. In the end, we do feel like we do have enough information to start making some decisions, and this data is outlined in Board Memo 112 and 114. The last item on the retreat was we took an overview of our parental lead options for our staff. Again, asking some questions, taking a look at other models. So we've got a good overview of the legal and the financial ramifications on that one. So that'll be, as we collect more information on that, an action for future board meetings.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. And appreciate everybody taking the time for the retreat. Those are not typically short meetings, so I appreciate that. Next on our agenda, we have Strategic Plan Progress, Strategic Focus 1, Culture of Learning, Goal 1. Mr. Gaylor? Does he have a thing? Okay.
Okay, thank you. And this is Goal 1. This section is called Culture of Learning. And so it's just Goal 1 within Culture of Learning that we're talking about tonight. We want to support a healthy culture, and the best way, one of the best ways that we can do that, at least the way that this goal outlines it, is to ensure that we have good stakeholder engagement. And so this is about increasing the percentage of people that are responding so that we can get good sample size with our stakeholder engagement. And then we have a whole process that we go through with the results of that to inform our decisions within our district school improvement committee, and then by building in the district as well. So the goal is to administer these surveys early in the year. This year we administered just a little bit earlier than last year, and that was in anticipation of the timeline that we had for accreditation, so that we ensured we had time to be able to reflect on that feedback before accreditation in November. For staff, we administer a staff survey within Cognia, and then we also have the Vital Network survey, which you guys have heard about in the past. And those are all discussed at the building level, and strategies to respond to the feedback are discussed at the building level as well as the district level with those staff surveys. Students fill out Cognia surveys. So in both years, they've filled out similar surveys, although we, the middle school and high school approached it a little bit differently this year and had a survey that was a little bit shorter and didn't ask quite so many questions to just pick between words, because the information that the teachers had and the teams had gotten wasn't as valuable as what they saw this year. So we think we've got the right survey to administer to students now moving forward. Parents at the secondary level, they received a Cognia family engagement survey. Cognia is our accreditation body, and they produce these validated tools that can go out, and then we can use the data for those for school improvement decisions. At the elementary level, they actually took the approach that they were getting less survey response because they were sending out 2 different surveys in around the same time frame. So they blended the Cognia survey with the Title I survey that is also a requirement, so that we could just have one survey so parents didn't get confused and we weren't asking people to submit duplicate information. Each level took different action steps to try to get more engagement this year, and those are listed within that report for you. Middle school and high school used QR codes and focused a lot on parent-teacher conferences to try to impact their parent responses in those surveys. We did see some results with that. So when it comes to the student engagement survey, we had 2 schools that did not administer that survey in 2023. The communication and timing error with that, and so they went up quite a bit, as you can see. And overall, that increased the percentage, but we did have increased percentages of students, and that had a lot to do with the administrative planning and logistics around administering the student surveys. So that's why we saw the increase there. So next year, we'll have a better number to compare from this year. When it comes to the staff engagement rates, we did see a slightly higher, at least at some buildings, engagement in the vital survey in the previous year than this year. In some buildings it went up, in some buildings it went down, and in buildings where you have a small number of staff, that fluctuation can be pretty significant. So when we look at vital survey last year, we were just looking at teachers, and this year, teachers and front-facing personnel. And this year, Dr. Leck added a companion survey, which added more data for us that also covered employees that are not front-facing employees like paras and teachers. So when it came to the parent survey results, we did see a slight increase at most of the schools, and that the timing was also a large discussion when we had our schools looking at that survey data. They feel like we need more time in the beginning of the year. We actually felt like we got better results in being later in the year, but this year we rushed that to ensure that we had data before our accreditation. So even though we went up in most areas, we didn't go up as much as we had expected with parent engagement, and the schools are already discussing ways that they can move forward and get more and better data to discuss that in their district school improvement committees. So I think I pretty much summarized all that. Each of the building administrators, then they are discussing what that timing will look like for the upcoming school year. They take the data, that's meaningful data that they're getting from parents, students, and staff, and then through our process and school improvement, we analyze for trends, and then we determine findings, and then we determine what can we act on. What are the next incremental steps in continuous improvement that we can achieve in the coming year or the coming months based on that data. So it's really useful, and we appreciate those that contribute to that, and we're just looking for ways to continuously increase the percentage of people that respond. That's it.
Any questions from the board? Any questions or comments? Okay. If not, is there a motion to approve this from the board? Motion by Dan. Second by Owen. So we have a motion and a second for approval of strategic plan, progress, strategic focus 1, culture of learning, goal 1. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Superintendent's report. Or no, board education. Wait, yeah, superintendent's report. Dr. Leck, you ready for that? Oh, Mindy. Oh, wait, we're doing board education first. Strategic competency, community partnership with the Arts Center.
So it's
Sorry.
me?
Yes,
Me?
you. Yes, Mindy. Please. Thank you for coming and introduce yourself.
I
And
have to put this down, Jason, a little bit.
it's just.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. On a personal note, I want to thank each and every one of you. I've been in those seats before a couple different times, and it's not a great job. It's not very thankful, but it's a very, very important. So thank you for doing that. On a different note, I want to thank you with our partnership with Jamestown Park and Rec. As I serve on the commission there, we appreciate our partnership with Jamestown Public Schools and all the athletic facilities and all the programs. And on a professional note, I want to thank you for all of your support with the Art Center and all the things that we do there. We really appreciate our support from Jamestown Public Schools and our relationships. And so that's why I'm here to talk about what we're doing and moving forward. So thank you again for having me. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly, so stop me if you have any questions, but just wanted to let some of you know that might not know about the Art Center, but we started as a one-room exhibition space. Now we have classrooms, a gallery, performance space, a ceramic studio, and the Hanson Arts Park. We started at $500 budget a year to a $400,000 budget a year. We started with one volunteer, and now we have two full-time staff, an executive director, and an education and exhibits director, and a part-time office administrator, and dozens of contracted artists. And you'll see with all the things we do a lot with very few people, but a lot of volunteers. So our timeline is, in 1971, we officially incorporated. Highlights here, in 1984, we started our artist in residence program with Jamestown Public Schools. And then last year, in 2024, we began renovation of the new Kids Center and the Culinary Kitchen with the new, by purchasing the new space, the old Wonder Bar. Let's see here, come on. So this is our artist in resident, again this year, Anna Brock, and this is a relationship that we've had with you guys since what was on the last slide, I guess. She goes into every K through 6th grade classroom, K through 5th grade classroom in Jamestown Public Schools, and she does art with them for a 5 to 6 week session. Anna is a 3D artist, so she works with clay. So she brings clay into the schools, and she does it with them. So she's been here for a couple years, and we have her on contract for 1 more year. She also is contracted with Jamestown, or with the St. John's Academy, and Kensel buses their kids here, and they do music at Two Rivers Performing Arts, and then they do art classes with us. That's in the spring and in the fall. And that's through a grant through the North Dakota Council on the Arts. We also have arts after school classes. Every day after school, we have classes, professional art classes for kids for 2 to 3 weeks with professional art teachers. Every day after school, we provide transportation from school and home and a snack. We have culinary classes. You can see that our classroom's pretty small for culinary classes, not really conducive, so that's exciting part of our new project is the culinary kitchen. We do adult classes, anything from pasonki eggs, yeah, I learned how to say that, to pottery is a big thing now, to spray paint art. If you have an idea for a class or an artist that you think might be great for us, just let us know. We also have a contract with Ave Maria, and we do Art for Life up there with the residents up there. And then we have our Perfectly Paired event, of which we get people in the gallery to see the new exhibit that opens every 5 to 6 weeks. And we pair it with a wine event. February 6th is a tequila event. Mr. Leck, if you're into tequila, I would probably even give you a discount ticket because I'd like to see that. Okay. We also have a summer camp. This summer was a musical. We had about 100 kids in the building every day. Actually, I think it was not 100, it seemed like it. I think it was 45 kids in the Art Center every day, all day long for 2 weeks singing the musical. We do tie-dye, we do a little bit of everything for summer camps. And that's not just 3 through 6, that's K through 3, K through 2, and middle school students. And of course, we have the Downtown Arts Market, which is every Thursday in July and August. In October, we have Oktoberfest. There's a famous person on the left there, Owen. Last year we had our 60th anniversary gala, and it was Peace, Love, and the Arts. This year it's coming up, and it's Wild Wild Arts, and it's February 28th at Newman. So get your cowboy boots on. This year we'll have our 2nd annual Jamestown Fine Arts Association golf tournament at Hillcrest. So if you're interested, let me know. So that's just a few things that the Art Center does, and here's a few other things that just happen regularly. Open mic night, arts and craft club, We have facility rentals, anything from graduation. I had my kids' graduation party there. It was the best. I didn't have to clean the bathrooms. I mean, it was great. You know, I paid somebody to do it, but I didn't have to. We have a community theater and the exhibit, the gallery. So another project that we just started, or just venturing onto, and we actually met with Dr. Leck about this, is we're bringing art therapy to Jamestown. So we know that our community, like many others, lacks sufficient mental health resources. Thanks to a grant to support mental and health partners in the community, we are now offering a multi-phase art therapy initiative for adolescents experiencing issues with anxiety, depression, social challenges, grief, and trauma. So the skills enrichment through the arts is a grant that we got. We identified a need. We identified a project coordinator, a project lead. It's Dr. Jennifer Lepetsky, who's an actual art therapist who works at University of Jamestown. We submitted a grant through Strengthen ND, which is distributing Bush grant funds, in November, and they awarded us a one-year grant for a pilot program. So between January 2024 and June 2024, Dr. Lepetsky conducted interviews and met with stakeholders. Stakeholders were counselors from the middle school, private practitioners, Sanford, Essentia, you name it. In September, we applied for a 3-year grant through the North Dakota Strengthen ND, and we were awarded a 2-year grant. So we are we're doing this program now, and some of the highlights for the program: the arts often explore different perspectives and human emotions, which fosters empathy. Participants develop emotional awareness and the ability to express and manage their emotions effectively. There's just so many different topics that art therapy can address that just normal therapy doesn't. I shouldn't call it normal therapy, but you know, it can reduce stress, anxiety, and improving overall mental health. Engaging in creative activities can be a healthy way to manage emotions and emotional challenges. You guys have all this, don't you? So I don't need to read everything. Anyway, we think it's a pretty good program. We think it's very much needed in our community, probably everywhere. So we're very fortunate to have gotten that grant. I think we were one of the highest grantees that they awarded, so we're pretty excited about that. You guys have that all on your. So the timeline for this, January through April of 2025, Dr. Lepetsky is working with stakeholders, JPS counselors, and private practitioners to identify participants. She's going to conduct 8 students for 8 sessions in the spring. 6th and 7th graders is who she's going to identify with this time. And then in September of 2025 through May 2026, that will be our 2nd year, Dr. Lepetsky and an art therapist assistant will conduct several sessions. And these sessions are designed to take place at the Art Center, and we have built into the grant transportation from school to the Art Center and back. In September, that next session, year 2, we want to expand the age groups to younger and perhaps older age groups. And she's going to develop a product usable and shareable to other communities. That was the biggest part about the Strengthen ND grant. They wanted a product that could be taken to a different community and used there. So she will actually develop, all the things needed to take this project, this equipment, this kit to a different community. Edgeley, Bismarck, you name it. So in September of 2026, we want to see this program continue, and so that's why we met with Dr. Leck to kind of plant the seed that maybe this is something that JPS can partner with us, or maybe it's a private practice to continue the program. So any questions about anything so far?
Any questions from the board? Go ahead.
For the applicants for your art therapy program, is that something that, like, Dr. Lepetsky meets with 6th and 7th grade counselors throughout the school, and they kind of determine who, or is there an application process, or?
There's not going to be an application process for this pilot program, but she's going to meet with the counselors and identify the 6 to 8 kids. And she's got a rubrics for that, and, she's very intelligent. Okay, so then I'll go into the expanding the bar for the arts. So that's our Wonder Bar project. So why are we doing this? With this additional space, we can host more community members. We can more than triple the scope of our services. We're doing it for the community. We're going to have culinary classes, event space. We'll have a courtyard, a gallery, classrooms, kitchen rental. So part of the culinary kitchen is going to be health inspected. You know, it's going to be a commercial kitchen. So if you are a cottage farmer, I learned who cottage farmers are. They make salsa to sell at like Cashwise. You have to be in a commercial kitchen. So you can rent the space from us, and you can be certified, and then you can go sell your wares someplace else, or your goods. So we actually got a grant from Jamestown Tourism because they're excited to have local people make stuff in our kitchen and sell it at the village. And also, of course, for our kids, we want to expand Arts After School from the numbers from 12 to 40, and we also know we need to include middle school, and also K through 2 would be great too. And one of the most exciting partnerships is the partnership with JPS to launch an innovative culinary arts program for local students. You guys got a grant, $146,000 grant, I think, Adam, to furnish the kitchen in the way that the JPS needs, and then we'll pick up the slack for the rest that we need for our culinary kitchen needs. We're very excited about that. So our timeline, we purchased the building in 2022, August 2022. Demolition began April of 2024. We signed the agreement with JPS in September. Final renderings were submitted, well, you can see all this. So long story short, we anticipate a grand opening in the fall of 2025. So there's a new plan, blueprint a bit. So the bottom left corner is now the culinary kitchen. In the original blueprints when I came here, on the right side, that space in the middle, that's the existing classroom in our existing building. That was going to be the culinary kitchen, but after the agreement with JPS and a lot of other factors, we decided to move the kitchen. So now it's going to be, right now if you drive by the Wonder Bar, it's where they painted the mural. So that'll have its own access for the JPS students, or well, not the students, hopefully, or the teacher, and people that are going to rent the kitchen. And it was just a lot easier to vent the hoods out there and all. So that's going to be much easier. And if you're really interested in what the kitchen's going to look like, this is also included. It shows where between the school and Cleve from Trimark and our needs, it shows exactly where every piece of kitchen equipment's going to be. So that's the raising the bar for the arts. Right now, we are at about $1.7 million raised. We were at the beginning of the project. We put a price tag on it of $2 million, which I thought was kind of low. Yes, it was low, and now our goal is $2.4 million. But we're pretty confident. We are confident that we can do that. So I just don't sleep at night, but that's fine. I mean.
Any questions from the board on the, Aaron?
Can you just kind of describe the total scope of what you have planned for the culinary arts side of it in terms of, you know, we got the JPS students, but then there's also adult learning classes.
Yeah.
And all. Can you just kind of
Yeah, sure.
walk through some of
So we have been doing a lot of culinary classes in our existing facility. We've done anything from a 5-session pasta making class to pho, which is Vietnamese stew, to pot stickers, to just people are clamoring for culinary kitchen classes. And so we're just really excited to have this. I mean, it's not pleasant to work on a table like that size when you're doing, you know, culinary projects. And so we're really excited about that. And there's a lot of people that are coming out of the woodwork that say, you know, I'd love to make focaccia bread. Can you put us on the schedule, or, you know, anything. If you have an idea, come on. If you can make great hamburgers, we'll have a hamburger making class, you know.
So there's an opportunity for volunteer
Yes.
support on and using this equipment and getting out into the community above and beyond what, just
We'd
the
like you to be
JPS
a
side.
member before you kind of use the kitchen, but yeah. Membership's pretty cheap.
Any other questions from the board? Mindy, it appears that the new location for the kitchen is much larger and just,
Yeah.
more like
After we got the
space
initial.
to move around
Yeah,
for
when we
like
got
students
the
and.
call from Jamestown Public Schools, it was pretty evident that we needed to have something more than just what our needs were. And you can see in that printout there, the tables are in the middle there, and they're movable, and yeah, it's going to be a great space.
And Aaron, to your point, just that connection of the community and the availability to provide different things that we just haven't had the opportunity before.
Yeah, and it's really a community collaboration. The scope got well beyond JPS and what we're doing, and it's just a great opportunity, I think, for.
I mean, I could even see renting it out to families that wanted to bake Christmas cookies or, do their Christmas goodies or something. We would probably rent it, we would rent it out to them too.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mindy.
Yep, thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing the progress and finished product here. So that was our board education, strategic competency, community partnership with the Arts Center with Mindy Schmidt. So thank you. Now moving on to report, our superintendent's report. Oh, is Adam gonna? Did you have anything
So
to
Mindy, I
add?
told you I'd get you out of here for the national championship game, so yeah. So you have my written report, but before I get into the written report, we had an event happen over the weekend that didn't obviously make it into the written report, and I want to thank our food service folks that are here for really stepping up to the plate. We had an emergent situation at the University of Jamestown. We were notified about 3:30. I got an email. I woke up around, 5:45 or 6 o'clock, and I'm thinking, well, okay, I'm going to get right on this. They had already been in contact with Darby. I think Darby was probably at the high school by that time, already working on trying to collaborate and how we could support. That's what you do in a community. You have emergencies and you just help people out because they would do it for you. And so very thankful for our food service folks for really stepping up to the plate and helping out another community member agency that needs the help. So we are helping to provide kitchen space for the University of Jamestown to provide meals for 800, 900 individuals. We will continue to do that as long as they need us to, and it's just something that we do, and I want to thank them for going above and beyond. Thank Darby and Adam as well for going above and beyond to make sure that we could help out as soon as possible. So we were serving meals on Sunday. So that was, like I said, that's what you do in a community. So we were glad to be able to help out, but I want to give credit to our food service folks who are doing that work, and they are the ones that are impacted from our staff. So thank you to them. For my written report, really on behalf of our community and our staff, I want to recognize it's Board Member Appreciation Month. And I've said many, many times that I feel like our board is a model for governance, a model for how school boards should operate. Thank you for the work that you do. It's very tough work. It is full of challenges, but it's also something that you take away a sense of accomplishment. So thank you for all that you do in providing the support that we need as educators and for our students and for our community. So thank you for the work that you do. Further on in my written report, you'll see I just explained equitable services. We'll have a Title IV equitable services agreement that was in our consent agenda. And every time one of these comes up, I feel the need to explain a little bit with equitable services. That's federal monies that we get in by those regulations. The private school partner, the private partners that want to participate have the right to participate, and they get a allocation based on their size and the number of eligible students. And so we are, we're the holder of those dollars, but those dollars are eligible to go to those other partners as long as they have allowable activities. So that's what that is. We are the go-between between that federal title program and the private entity. Excuse me. Title I, I want to spend a little bit more time on this allocation model. I'm really I'll be honest with you, I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in this model. A year ago, I shared about this model, and there was a conversation occurring and they were gathering public comment on this allocation model. So what happens is the Department of Education disperses dollars to states, and states determine how to best meet how to spread those dollars, allocate those dollars to districts. So that's how it works. Flows through block grant, goes to a state. State determines what is our model to disperse those dollars to individual schools. For many, many years, North Dakota has recognized that we have a unique makeup in our state. We have very large schools, we have very small schools, we have heavily poverty-stricken schools, we have our Native American impacted schools on reservations throughout the state, and the cookie cutter approach that the Department of Education uses to allocate those funds hasn't really matched what the needs are in North Dakota, and we've recognized that in North Dakota for many years. Last year, however, there was a proposal that came out from the Department of Public Instruction that suggested we want a more heavily weight population. The reason they wanted to use the census model is that, number one, it was easier to determine. It's the process we have now. I would hesitate to call it complicated, but there are more variables. That includes a fairly hefty weight on poverty, which when you consider the needs of Title I, that makes a lot of sense to me, but it's heavily weighted to those different variables, a little bit more evenly than the census, which is more heavily weighted towards the students that live in your district, not the students that attend your district, the students that live here. So if a student lives in Jamestown, goes to school in Montpelier, that's a student in our allocation. You know, the current allocation model that we have, that would be a student for Montpelier if they're eligible. So the USED model uses heavily weighted towards the population of your school district, not where they go to school, not if they go to school in Jamestown. We expressed some pretty significant concern when this came through last year. I did a pretty deep analysis on the impact, and we saw a decrease, which of course was the original reason we looked to dig in, because we were around a 15%, if I remember right, a 15% decrease, and that was concerning to me. And so we started to dig in, well, what does this mean? Why is this the case? What's happening? What other variables are impacted? And I was concerned for us, but I was really concerned for other districts. So when you do this calculation in 25, I'll go back. There was a public comment period last time, so last year around, and I expressed some concern on behalf of not only Jamestown, but other districts to say, are we sure this meets the needs of North Dakota? Because it sure doesn't feel like it does. Because at that time, you're looking at about 25, 26 school districts seeing a greater than 10% decrease. That's concerning. And you would see schools, especially those we really saw heavily poverty, our most poverty-stricken school districts, our schools that are on or near our reservations, saw really staggering increases. You're talking 400, 500%. You know, a school district was decreasing over, what was it, 90%? It was like $1.8 million that they were losing. Our 90,000 didn't feel so bad when other districts are losing 1.8 million. And so it made me really question, and we responded with public comment to the department, and ultimately they said, well, we agree. It's not the right time to make this change. We felt good. Flash forward to this past month, we get an email that says, we are moving to this model. There is no opportunity for public comment. We are just doing it. There's no change from the model that we looked at last year. It didn't accommodate any of these concerns for rural districts, tribal schools, larger schools like ours that we're seeing a greater than 10% decrease. And it's just simply, we are doing this and it's happening next year. So again, can we survive in Jamestown? We can. It's $86,000 or something of that nature. Is it going to be tough? Yeah, it's going to impact our budget, but our services won't suffer. We're going to make do. We will persevere. But I'm still concerned about the other schools that, if you look at Turtle Mountain, Belcourt, see an 86% decrease of $1.6 million. You see Minnewacan see a 450% decrease. St. John, the town, St. John, not St. John's Academy, looking at their total allocation is 800,000, and they're being decreased 660,000. Those are catastrophic changes. And changes like that don't have opportunities for public comment, for us to come and say, is this really the way this should work? Without any level of consultation, it's really just troubling to me. And it's the wrong decision to make. It's the wrong decision not just for Jamestown, but it's the wrong decision for North Dakota. We saw, I think it's 24 school districts that see greater than 10% in a decrease. That should have generated some conversation. And at the very least, it should have been included a transition plan that said, well, we aren't going to do this to you this year. Here's our plan to get to you to do this by 2028 or something like that. Something that's manageable. Because in these title programs, just like any part of a school's budget, the majority of this is personnel. And so what is a school, I just think about if I'm another school like Belcourt and I'm losing $1.6 million and I learn about it in January, I have to have non-renewals, reductions in force coming up in a couple of months, and I have to reprogram our supplemental services to be able to support a loss of $1.6 million. That's not realistic. It's completely insensitive. It's the wrong decision to make. So we are again going and helping to explain to the department that this is the wrong decision, and hopefully we can encourage them to reconsider that, although they have said this is what is happening. I just want to reaffirm, I feel like this is all certainly unfortunate for Jamestown, but we will be able to adapt. It will impact our general fund budget, but we will be able to adapt to it. But it's bad policy. With that, I'm going to stand for questions if there are any in those topics.
Any questions from the board? Okay, continue.
So, one more piece of context to that. I think overall, if you look at the 25 schools that are seeing over 10% loss, 25, 26, it's in that range. It's about $6 million. $3 million of that, so half, is from Rolette County, our poorest county in the state of North Dakota. And that comes from St. John, Dunseith, and Turtle Mountain, Belcourt. So half of that comes from one county. It's just incredibly poor decision-making, in my opinion, and that shifts then to, we have some of our small elementary districts, some of our largest, most poverty-stricken schools right now get about $2,000 per pupil if you take their federal allocation, divided by the number of students enrolled. It's about $2,000 a student. This new model would take our smallest schools, our K-8 districts, and they would get about $7,000 a student. So that's one of those, help that make sense to me kind of situations. And I think it's just something that we need to continue to communicate, where the process needs to look different, if not the outcome. So I have included, again, the negotiations timeline. I remind you, as I have every cycle, from now until the completion of negotiations, I'll put possible executive session along with consultation from the board chair. That doesn't mean we're going to have executive session every meeting, just possible, because it could come up that you're strategizing for next steps in the negotiations. But just when you look in there, you'll see that our agendas from now until an agreement with those units, those bargaining units, you'll have that. And for any executive session, because it's very protocol driven, I'll have a proposed motion and guidelines linked to each of those as well. Just a step-by-step, this is how you do it. We have started legislative session. I just have given you some overarching themes and some bills to consider. I think we're around 700 bills now. Many of those in which I am monitoring, so it gets to be a full-time job just watching. And monitoring all of those. I think what I'm going to do is give you some really key ones that you should be focused on, and then I'll do a spotlight bill or two every meeting to help you look to some of our key area bills that you should be following. But if you have any that you want me to share more on, please just let me know. I'm happy to dig a little deeper or present a little bit more on any of the bills, but I will try to do that in terms of in those spotlights. And speaking of spotlights, we had 3 staff members receive really outstanding honors from the North Dakota Council for Exceptional Children. Jolene Barnick was named as Paraprofessional of the Year. Tiffany Dawson was named as Special Education Teacher of the Year. And Kathy Fisher was named as Humanitarian of the Year. So we want to honor them, and we'll bring them here in the future and to give them a certificate and honor them from the board as well. But this just became public, so I wanted you to be aware of that in the spotlight as well. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions from the board? Okay, all right. And we'll look forward to paring down the 700 bills and bringing them forth. And congratulations to Jolene, Tiffany, and Kathy. And we look forward to having you come to a future board meeting. If there's no further questions, we'll continue on in our agenda. We have nothing under old business. Under new business, under activities, A, approval of a co-op agreement of co-op agreements with Victory Christian School. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of a co-op agreement with Victory Christian School. Any discussion? Any discussion? So, I always like to just comment on these. I just want to make sure that the resource, that there's not a lot of additional resources, or resources also, make sure that we account for our students. And I know Mr. Rolson does take a look at those. When we approve these, we approve them once and they're kind of there forever. And so I just always want to keep in mind as to how many we have and the impact just on our own students in the future. So that's just my comment on those. And I know Mr. Rolson does keep track of those. So did you want to add anything?
The only thing I guess I would add is that, what is being recommended is similar to what exists for other private partners,
Yep.
St. John's Academy.
Yep, and other neighboring schools. So, yep, just wanted to make those comments. So we have a motion, a second, and discussion for approval of a co-op agreements with Victory Christian School. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion, okay. One aye, one for. And under buildings and grounds, A, we have approval to restructure to 4 elementary buildings and 7 K-5 section in the 2025 to 2026 academic year. Is there a motion? Dan, there's a motion. Is there a second? Second, Melissa. We have a motion, a second, to restructure to 4 elementary buildings and 7 K-5 section in 2025 to 2026 school year. Discussion. Dan?
I'm going to make a more specific motion.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
In light of the conditions we're under, I move that we retire Washington Elementary School from active service
Okay.
following the completion of 2024-25 school year prior to 25-26.
Okay. So you second that? Okay. So I got a little bit ahead of myself. I was reading I didn't catch your waves. So can you repeat that motion, Dan, just to make sure?
Yes, the motion is retire Washington Elementary School from active service
Okay.
after the school year,
2025, okay.
before the start of 25-26.
Before the 20, okay. And Melissa, are you in agreement with that second of that? Okay. And then we'll have some discussion on this. Lots of hands going up. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a motion to amend that motion.
Okay.
To add to it.
Now he's gonna-
In addition to that, to also any action, I move that any action on the assets pending further short and or long-range planning, and this retirement of the building would be without any reduction in force.
Could that be repeated, please, the amendment?
Yes. So upon, I move that any action on the assets would be pending further short and/or long-range planning, and without any reduction in force.
So can I just, do you want me to talk about the parliamentary piece of that?
Yeah, make sure we're getting this right.
So now you have an amendment on the floor, and so you need a second to bring that to the floor, and then you would be having discussion and action to vote on the motion,
On the original motion.
on the amended motion.
Okay. Okay. So Dan is going to second that. So now we have a motion and a second on the floor. With that, then we now have an amended motion to,
You're voting on the amended.
yep, an amended motion with some additional language and a second on the amended motion. Discussion on the amended motion, yes.
Parliamentary question here then.
Yes.
So the vote is simply to add the amendment, not to
Okay.
pass the full motion.
Correct.
Yep, the motion is, yep. But is there discussion on adding the amendment at this time? Dan?
So this is to clarify that the school will still be closed, but as far as disposition of assets, that might take some more time, and stipulate that we will not reduce our force because of this action.
Correct, yeah, no, that there is further discussion and further actions that need to be taken in order to deal with the assets, what we do with the building and any other future activity. And then, yeah, to just reiterate that there is no reduction in force as a result of the operational change. Any changes or the of the staff will be handled through attrition and allocated throughout the district.
Do you go back and you just, you don't, then the original one goes away. Okay. Any more discussion on the amended motion? Now your vote is just to, since we had an initial motion and an amendment, your vote is to go with the amended motion for further vote. So you're not voting on the motion, just whether we're going to consider that. Yes, Jason?
Can I just address the reduction in force piece to that? As Dr. Lecka said in memos and whatnot, we are in a fortunate position in our district that we are able to, at this point, take some of these precautions without having to go through that process, and that's always a good day. And I don't want to scare anyone, but my concern is, can we guarantee that per se in this motion? Do we feel comfortable doing that? Dr. Leck, I know that's the goal, and I know I don't foresee a problem. I'm just saying, if it's going to be in our motion, are we comfortable with that?
Personally, I'm comfortable with that in a motion. It is our intention. It is what we would have done. Whether it's in whether it's in a motion or not, we would have found a way to make this work. Whether it is available positions in the district, short-term contracted positions that we could make work for a short period of time, I am very confident that that will not be an issue. So from my perspective, whether it's in the motion or not, that would be our plan moving forward. So I feel comfortable.
Any other discussion before we vote on considering the amended motion? Okay. Christie, we'll do a roll call vote. Now, your vote of yes means we're bringing the amended motion to the table for further discussion. A vote of no means we go back to the original motion made by Dan and seconded by Melissa. Okay, everyone clear on that? Okay. I just want to make sure everyone knows what they're voting on. So a yes means this is the new motion that we'll bring forth for discussion.
Okay. Heidi Larson,
Yes.
Jason Rohr,
Yes.
Jacob Meyer,
Yes.
Dan Tweeten, Aaron Roberts, Steve Veldkamp, Melissa Gleason, Owen McKenna, Jamie Bear. Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay. So now we have a motion and second for, and Aaron, you want to repeat your motion one more time, and then we'll move into more discussion. So,
I'll repeat the entire motion here as best as I can.
because it was an addition onto
Yes,
Dan.
So the original
just-
motion plus the amendment is a move to discontinue or retire Washington Elementary School after completion of the 2024-2025 school year and before the start of the 2025-2026 school year, with any action on the assets pending further short and/or long-range planning and without any reduction in force.
Very good. So, discussion on that motion, the amended motion. Melissa? Yep, yep, I know.
Still trying to figure, okay. So now we're back to the original motion with the
Amendment, yes,
added to
yep,
it.
yep. And we had a motion and second already, so we're just going to have discussion now on the amended motion.
On just the amendment?
No.
So that, the amended motion is now the motion?
Correct.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, correct. And then, and so our vote was just to consider that as a motion and a second, but we haven't voted for that motion yet. So our vote was to amend the motion. And so now we're in the discussion.
Now we're
Discussing,
discussing.
yep,
The single motion, two motions together.
yes.
Okay.
Both together, yes.
Okay, just want to clarify.
Yeah, discussion, Melissa.
Firstly, I would just like to thank everybody who has been on a committee to bring all of the information to the board. I know there has been several committees just within the last couple of years, and there have been committees even previous to that. This is not a decision that is made lightly by any means, and I have been getting information through emails and texts and conversations, and of course everybody has different and varying opinions on this, and they are all valid opinions. I want people to understand that those have been read, they have been looked at. We have done our due diligence in looking into things. This is not something that we are just flippantly making a decision on. This is not easy, and it is something that not everyone is going to walk away from this decision happy and grateful for it. However, we as a board have to make a decision that is based on the best overall for the entire district, not just one group of people. And with that being said, I fully support the retiring of Washington and would like to make sure that Washington is honored as we do this, because it is a great building. It's been a part of this community for a very long time. And please understand that this board knows that, and we are going to do everything we can to honor that building and honor those who have worked in that building and who have gone through that building in the past.
Thank you, Melissa. Other discussion from the board? Aaron?
So yeah, I've been involved in, I guess, both the committees, community committees, going back a couple years now, really, and doing some of the original problem statement assessment and looking at, what are the challenges that we have. One of the things that was just foundational in even just starting the conversation is our 10-year capital projects plan. Just defining the needs of the district. These 9 different facilities. What do we need to do? They're aging. It's characterized as maybe every 100 years we should think about doing some investment in our district. So that's kind of what we're looking at with the Washington School. So from that perspective, logically it makes sense that there's status quo is not where we need to be. And of all the data that we started looking at and pulling together in terms of, what do these buildings need, where are our operational needs as a district, it was just saying we need to do something different before we get ourselves in trouble and continue to defer and defer and defer. it's time to take action. And so that's what's in front of us here as one of the steps, recognizing that this is a multi-step process to actually address the overall issue that the district has. So this one, from a financial standpoint, from the taxpayer's perspective, makes perfect sense. From other perspectives, which there are many, there's some challenges in it. So where is that balance? And that's kind of what's in front of us right now. I think we've done a really good job from a district perspective and making sure we understand what's in front of us. What is that? What is sitting out there in 10 years? So it's not a surprise. It's just the reality of the situation. Yeah, it's a tough decision, but it's one that has to be made in order to get a direction for the district. So I support it, and I think it's the right thing to do. And like I say, it's the first step in the next few steps that we're going to have to take.
Thank you, Aaron. Jason?
Yeah, to echo, I don't want to echo too many previous comments, but along the same thread of thinking, you know, Washington has meant a lot to a lot of people in this community for a very long time. And the decision here tonight does not take away from any of that. And I try to think of things like this, you know, education is about human capital, and the school board's responsibility is on financial capital. And a lot of times those two things don't play well together in the sandbox, and you've got to make some difficult decisions. The other thing I want to mention is, yeah, the two main responsibilities of any board member are first and foremost, the students, the academic outcomes, and the quality of education we're able to provide students. And then it's also the responsibility to those taxpayers who were responsible for using that money as best we can. One thing I do want to address, though, is when things get to this point in any community, and please remember, Jamestown is no different than hundreds of other districts across the country. We're having less kids as a nation. I mean, and so things just have to change, and I just want to remind us that for the last 10, 12 years, were there things that could have been done differently with Washington? Sure. Could, you know, in this whole process of, well, what are we going to do with the building and whatnot? Yeah, we all can look back and say, hey, we should have maybe done this then. But, you know, we are where we are now, and we just need to do the best we can. The timing of these things are never easy, but I also want to illustrate that we're doing these things now for a very specific reason, and that is to do the best we can to avoid even harder decisions at some point down the road. Again, we're going into a legislative session. North Dakota, historically, North Dakota legislature has been very good to education, but the point being, we don't want to be strapped to the point where we do have to look at, reduction in force or closing programs and that sort of thing. So I think that's very important to remember. And Dr. Leck, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but there seems to be some misinformation perhaps on the architect, the ICON group that has been guiding us. They are not paid unless we end up building a new facility. They're not contracted. They're not the bad guy from out of town that's here to make money. They are a partner in this. They've helped us get to this point, and our retreats and whatnot. But I just think there's some misinformation out there on that.
Yeah, ICON's our architect. You're correct. The agreement that we had signed for pre-referendum services is solely dependent upon a successful referendum. There would be no, I think if you look at your agreement, now I'm not looking at it now, but I think it's $5,000. If a referendum were to be successful, they may charge us $5,000 for pre-referendum services. If there is no successful referendum, meaning if it doesn't pass in our community or we decide not to pursue it, that may, they are not reimbursed those costs. They may choose to do that if we don't move forward with one, but if a referendum does not pass, that is essentially for them to make money, the referendum would have to be successful.
And the last thing I'll say is on that point that the step we're potentially taking tonight is in no way, shape, or form tied to approving a referendum. That's going to be another step at some point. So I there's been a lot of talk about the two being connected. We have now separated both items, and for several reasons, mostly time, we've decided to address this evening. So that basically is what I want to say. And like Melissa said, nothing has been taken for granted in this process. So well, I'm just looking forward to the next phase.
Thank you, Jason. Owen?
Yeah, that being said, I think to your last point, Jason, too, I think we are separating things, but at the same point, we're not closing the door and moving on. I think this is where the work is going to begin, and the community, we need as much input through surveys, and we need those voices heard and folks at the table moving forward as we think about really exciting prospects for developing new spaces and modernizing and creating awesome learning environments.
Thank you, Owen. Jacob, go ahead.
One quick question, or would it be possible, just to clarify, for teachers potentially displaced at the closing of Washington, you said we can avoid a reduction in force, which is great. Does that also include maintaining their current salaries?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those are, now for teaching staff, they have continuing contracts. So unless there was a reduction in force or a non-renewal, they would, by law, be eligible for that same salaried amount. What the motion was and what our intention was is to consider no reductions for any of our staff, meaning our support staff as well. So that was always our intention, but that's codified in that motion.
And I'd like to reiterate that at no time was there an interest in any kind of change in our current employees. So go ahead. Steve.
Just to
Thank you,
clarify, that the icon fee, maybe I was misunderstanding this, but I thought that if we move forward with a referendum and it passes, then there's no fee. It's absorbed into their architectural fee. The $5,000 would come if a referendum would not pass, and icon, either we send them packing or they walk away, then they would have opportunity to bill us. And he said they never have actually done that to anybody.
Yeah, and maybe I didn't state that articulate that as clearly as I should have, but you are correct. And they may choose to assess that fee in the event of a failed referendum, or if we decide to move on from them, they may choose to do that.
Thank you, Steve, for clarifying. Dan?
The timing of this proposed action, I want to make sure we're clear on this one. The timing of this is to allow administration and teachers time to make plans for the next year. And that's a major demographic we want to make sure we respect, that we don't just drop it on somebody later in the game. So we could spend more time doing this. However, I think we have the data, and the decision's likely not going to change after this vote. So that's a major item, is to make sure we have enough time to work through the staff with this.
Thank you, Dan. Jamie?
And just to go off what Dan said, and also the parents and the redistribution of what district or what school district you're going to be in now. So we will definitely be in communication.
Thank you, Jamie. Aaron?
Yeah, just to build on that point a little bit further, just that we have already engaged in boundary studies and looking at how where the redistribution would go in the case that this passes. And then also with the other options that are out there that have been considered, what does that look like? So we minimize the number of movements. So there is already work in process to make sure we have that known before we actually get to that point.
Yep, and I think everyone is aware that some of those things are challenges that the board has taken into consideration of the whole picture, but just the things that you guys mentioned. So thank you, Aaron. Any other discussion? Pardon?
If the board is done, I do.
Yep. If the board has any other discussion from the board at this time? Okay. Dr. Leck has a few comments he'd
Yeah,
like
just-
to make prior to our vote.
Thank you. Just for the sake of clarity, wanted to, and to provide more context, if the public is looking and wondering a little bit more about how this process was made, there was references in the discussion towards, we've had different committees or we've had lots of discussion or how we've gathered feedback. There's a couple different places you could look in the board agenda. Board Memo 112 is a pretty dense document, but it does outline the whole process, the timeline, what actions have been taken already, what future actions are coming. That gives you a sense of all of the groundwork and context that was done. Board Memo 114 is the one that was provided at this meeting. In that, a little more succinct, but there's a few pieces to that I think are important to reference in terms of this discussion. So I know that many are maybe logged into this meeting or might watch it after the fact. And so I want to reaffirm, just for the sake of clarity, that the board is, the district and the board has looked at this question. We've looked at it together, but really when we've created our problem statement, what is the problem? We really have two. One is we have declining enrollment, and that's trending downwards, and that impacts funding and it impacts resource allocation. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is we have a significant funding shortfall to address aging facility needs. And so we have those two problems. They're somewhat competing, but they're companion problems. And so really what this motion and discussion talks about is problem number one, which is declining enrollment. How are we going to operationally address declining enrollment? That is separate from the discussion that we need to have from a long-term standpoint about aging facilities, particularly aging elementary facilities. So that is a problem that right now we're bookmarking for the future, and we're talking about only declining enrollment and what operational changes do we need to make right now to address problem number one, which is declining enrollment. When we get into the discussions about aging facilities, that's also a complicated, really immersive type of problem. We've collected an awful lot of data on our facilities, and we've planned out 10 years of capital projects, and Aaron referenced that in the discussion. That's called our capital projects plan. But I also don't want to suggest or to have anybody suggest or infer that because we have these aging facility needs and all of these dollars in the long term, that we haven't managed our facilities appropriately. We have limited funding. Every year the board prioritizes. We go through a fairly intensive process to target, what are the biggest priorities in every building across the district. So we have limited funds. We can't do everything every year. We have to prioritize. That bucket is only so big. And that doesn't mean that we aren't maintaining our buildings. We're doing that every year. We do all of the things that we need to do, inspections, building inspections, roof inspections. We prioritize and we gather feedback from our administrators and our district maintenance folks to create a capital projects plan. It's a pretty lengthy process that we go through every single year to make sure that we are prioritizing the right dollars to the right facility needs. So I don't want anybody to get the feeling that we aren't managing our dollars appropriately. We have a limited bucket and we're prioritizing them the best that we can. But absolutely we're maintaining. There aren't boilers that aren't operating. There aren't things that are not occurring that should be occurring. We aren't kicking the can down the road by not spending the dollars that we have. We are allocating 100% of the funds we have every year to the projects. It's just the projects are greater than the funding that we have. That's what the capital projects plan tells us. So I don't want anybody to think, oh, if we had only done this or had only done that or only spent all of those funds we get. We are doing that. It's just we have aging facilities and there's useful life to any facility, just like there is in our home. We don't operate a boiler. We don't have a furnace in our homes from 1958. We don't do that. We make the investment I hope you don't. Well, maybe you do. I'm sorry if you do. But many of us choose not to do that. How can I say it that way? We choose not to do that because we know that there's a greater investment that has a longer, but that takes capital. And right now we're in a position where we can't fulfill all those needs. But that's a different conversation than the conversation we're having tonight. And the conversation we're having tonight is solely about declining enrollment. So to make a long story short, go to Board Memo 112 or Board Memo 114 to give you some really good context to the history and the decisions that have led us to this point. Make sure that you are on the lookout for the various ways that we are going to seek out feedback and share information. That's going to come for our parents, our Washington parents. If the decision is to move forward with a closure or retirement, then we'll start to gather some questions and create an FAQ document for our parents. We're going to start doing things for our students, helping them transition to wherever building they are going to be placed. We are doing a boundary study that's going to help us understand at the elementary level what those different boundaries are going to be. That's going to impact everybody. That doesn't just impact one building. There's a waterfall effect that's going to happen across the district if one building is retired. It's not that all students from one building are going to go to another. There's going to be a spillover effect into every boundary zone. We'll know more about that when that boundary study is finalized, and that and the enrollment study will be presented to the board as soon as that's completed. So that'll be a public a meeting and report as well. So be on the lookout we're going to be doing a survey in the near future, getting some feedback on what is supported around question 2. That's the aging facilities and how are we going to address those as a community. And then, of course, our staff, and we're doing some things with our staff that will be organized this week to get some feedback on where those preferences are and how can we best accommodate, in the 25-26 school year for those different positions. So I think that is all I wanted to share.
Thank you, Dr. Leck, and I do really appreciate all the board discussion. Is there anything else that has come to mind that you want to discuss prior to our vote on this? Okay, so we have a motion by Aaron, and Aaron, help me make sure I get this correct. It's to retire Washington at the end of the 2024-25 school year and not operate in the 25-26 school year. With that, short and long term, what was that part? The assets?
No action
Just
on
no action
on the assets
on the assets at this time.
pending further planning.
Pending further planning, as well as no reduction in staff or force there, yes, at Washington School. So that is the motion by Aaron. Dan has a second on that motion. Any? Yep. Yep, I know, I just reiterating the whole process, just because it's been a little time. Yep, so you've had the second on that, and we had really good discussion. Thank you, though. We had really good discussion. The board and Dr. Luck had some additional references to his two board memos. Any other discussion at this point prior to the vote? I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to make any comments or before we move into this roll call vote. Okay? Everyone's comfortable moving forward? Okay? Christie?
Okay. Jamie Bear. Heidi Larson.
Yes.
Jason Rohr.
Yes.
Jacob Meyer.
Yes.
Dan Tweeten.
Yes.
Aaron Roberts.
Yes.
Steve Veldkamp.
Yes.
Melissa Gleason. Owen McKenna.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous approval of the motion. And then, Dr. Leck, you mentioned several things, but I think the board is in agreement with your, starting to work with staff and parents and students and all the other pieces that you mentioned. So.
Yep, now that there is final action, now that we can start, I mean, this is the leverage, the lever point, for us to take other action now, to talk to our staff, to talk to our parents, gather information from our parents on what questions they have, and start talking about transitioning for our students.
And then just bring that back to the board in your superintendent reports too, as to the progress and process, so that so we can all be on the same page with. Yes, Jason.
So Dr. Leck, like with questions, concerns, comments, do you prefer those come directly to you, and in what way?
A good question. I'm going to be, and I didn't clarify this, but I'm going to be sending out a survey to our Washington community that asks them specifically for questions that they have. I'll use those to generate an FAQ, and I'll send out that FAQ, ask for additional questions if there's need for greater dialogue, and then we'll see where the feedback takes us. But I think, any question we can get in a response to those, it will help us better understand where our families are, what questions they have, and how we can best help the transition. And people could look for that probably in the next week.
Any other questions or comments from the board now that we're moving forward with this? Okay. Aaron, go ahead.
And then just to reiterate, there is still a lot of work that we still need to do to get the community input on as far as what we do with the campus and anything else beyond that. So there's still a process that we need to continue that, and that'll go forward with.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else? Okay. All right. So under Buildings and Grounds, B, approval of bids for JV CTC expansion. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve, second by Dan. We have a motion and a second for approval of bids for JVCT expansion. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. C, approval of culinary arts project bid to Trimark. Is there a motion? Aaron, was that you? Okay, Aaron, yeah, motion by Aaron. Second by Owen. We have a motion and a second for approval of culinary arts project bid to Trimark. Any discussion? Any discussion? I like the little pictures of on the sides of what it was all involved. So, any other discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 3, curriculum assessment instruction. There's nothing under there. Under finance, we have general fund balance and monthly financial reports. Those are there for informational. Does anyone have questions for Christy at this time? Okay. If not, at any time you have questions for her, she is available. Number 5, personnel. Approval of extended contract for the 2025 to 2026 school year. Number 1, Teresa Olson. Is there a motion? Motion by Jamie? Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of extended contract for the 2025 to 2026 school year for Teresa Olson. Any discussion? Dr. Leck.
Just for the sake of clarification, it is for the child care center. That will be opening 25, 26.
Yes, and thank you for her work, extensive work on that. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any other discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. B, approval of position for the James Valley Career and Technology Center for the 2025 to 2026 school year. Does the board care if we do one motion? Okay. Number 1, commercial driver license instructor. 2, culinary arts instructor. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan, second by Melissa. We have a motion and a second for approval of positions for the James Valley Career and Technical Center for the 2025 to 2026 school year. Number 1, commercial driver's license instructor. Number 2, culinary arts instructor. Any discussion? Melissa.
When I was reading over the description of the positions, it's not stating whether they're part-time, full-time, what.
Mr. Gaylor, would you just come forward to answer some of these questions?
It would be dependent on enrollment. Yeah.
Second part of my question would be, we're looking currently at hiring just for the high school level, not for the adult education, or is this for both?
We can do these together too, right?
And I want to clarify something too, that I think connects to your question. You're approving that the positions be opened? The board, what was before the board to approve the positions to be opened? When a hire form is completed, the board will act on the contract, which will include the time commitment. So if it's 0.29 or 1.0 FTE or whatever it is, that would come back before the board. Right now, you're saying that the board is being asked the question, do you want to approve these positions to be listed and considered, for contracts?
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second for approval of commercial driver's license instructor and a culinary arts instructor for the JVCTC for the 2025 to 2026 school year. Any further discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. C, approval of notice of intent to negotiate and unit description. Do you mind if we do these together as well? Okay. Number 1, Jamestown administrators. Number 2, Jamestown Education Association. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Second by Owen. We have a motion and a second for approval of notice of intent to negotiate and unit description of number 1, Jamestown administrators. Number 2, Jamestown Education Association. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. 6, policy and procedures. A, do you mind if we do all these in one, or is there something you'd like to be pulled out separately? All in one? Okay. Approval of recommended policy updates. Number 1, approval to rescind policy, is that IAD? My printing is light for those policies. IAD, disposal of school real estate. 2, approval of the first reading of policy IAD, sale of district real property. 3, approval of amended policy FDE, education of special education students with disabilities, with subsequent A, review of FDE-E 504 student parent evaluation and exit forms. Number 4, approval of amended policy ACBC, use of animals in district schools and in curricular programs. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have motion and a second for approval of A, number 1 through 3 with subsequent A and 4. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Tuition. Approval of tuition agreement for the 2024 to 2025 school year. Student to attend Montpelier Public Schools. Number 1. Is there a motion? Motion by Jason. Second by Melissa. We have a motion and a second for approval of tuition agreement for 2024 to 2025 school year. Number 1, student to attend Montpelier Public Schools. Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 8 under other. Items for, we have nothing under other. Items for future agenda. Are there any items for future agenda that you'd like to see? Okay, if not, please let Dr. Lecker or myself know. And meetings to be scheduled. There's a school board meeting on Monday, February 3rd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room in the middle school. We have the ND-SBA negotiation seminar on Thursday and Friday, February 6th and 7th, 2025 at Bismarck. District Improvement Committee meeting on Thursday, February 20th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. in the Media Center at the high school. Are there any other meetings that we have? We just had, okay. Okay, I just want to make sure we didn't miss any other ones. Possible, next agenda item is possible executive session to discuss negotiation strategies. Okay, there being no motion, we move on. Monthly superintendent evaluation, section 4, curriculum and student support services, and section 5, community relations. There being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.